Africa. China has made more than $160 billion in investments in the Latin American region alone, and the Belt and Road Initiative already includes 20 countries from the region. Even more troubling for the US is the fact that China did not even include South America as a top target for its international projects. Take a look at some recent US comments. "This is our hemisphere that we're talking about," says Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty. "China is literally eating our lunch." Recently, Senator Edward Markey stated that China has a plan. "We don't have a plan." Can the US limit China and take charge of the regional scene? It's going to be a challenging undertaking. Let's see how we can break it down in this video. Before we continue, if you would like to support the growth of my channel and the creation of future videos like this, please subscribe, like, and comment on it. Alright then, let's continue. The Western Hemisphere's most pressing challenges were discussed last year during the Summit of America, which was sponsored and hosted by the United States and attended by all of the countries of North, Central, and South America. Yet, the United States had one agenda in mind. The main purpose of this summit was the U.S. desire to contain and sway Beijing's expansion and influence in the region. The U.S.'s commerce with South America in 2021 was only $295 billion compared to China's $400 billion. However, a huge issue sprang out prior to the summit. The U.S. government excluded Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. Why? Simply because these nations do not share the same values as the United States in terms of democracy. Sincerely, the United States government made a shameful and self-centered choice that immediately backfired in their faces. Keep in mind that while this is an American summit, every country in the region deserves a place at the table. And do you recall when the United States coordinated a diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing? Regrettably, this time around, Latin American nations are using the same tactic against the U.S. The Mexico president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, was the most vocal opponent. And my favorite part came from the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, who said, "It's wrong that Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua are not here because, as you heard from the Bahamas Prime Minister, that we need to speak with those with whom we disagree, and we don't only need to narrow cast," looking directly at Secretary of State Antony Blinken. She added, "That's the part of the problem of the world. There's too much narrow casting instead of broadcasting. There's too much talking at instead of talking with." Let me emphasize that final point again. There's too much of talking at instead of talking with. Instead of interacting with others, there is far too much talking at. One of the most frequent mistakes the U.S. government makes in international relations. We always want the rest of the world to act in a certain way. We naively believe that whatever that benefits America must also be the benefit the world at large. Nonetheless, every nation should have the autonomy to choose its own system of government. Thus, it ought to be up to each nation to decide with whom it does business with. Many countries in the global south today would prefer business with China over US for many obvious reasons that including US-sponsored coups and installing their puppet and unelected administrations, the establishment of U.S. military on foreign soil have had also bad reputation. On the other hand, read China's vision in this piece from the South China Morning Post. China invests in vital technologies and has integrated itself into 5G networks and other infrastructure development, making it appear to be everywhere. Building political connections, forging military alliances, and entering projects early to acquire influence. Amazingly, 25 of the 31 nations in the Latin American region have teamed up with China to construct urgently required infrastructure projects for economic development. The Summit of America was to be the United States' opportunity to demonstrate its commitment to the region of South America. Unfortunately, though, for the U.S., the conference was badly run and offered the nations that participated nothing substantial or practical. The Summit of Americans took to be a tobacco, a diplomatic own goal, said by Richard Haass for U.S. Council on Foreign Relations. The U.S. has no infrastructure plan, immigration strategy, or trade proposal. The focus is on who will and will not be there. Unclear why we even press for this to happen. It's absolutely amateur hour, said Nicholas Cole, a professor of public diplomacy at the University of Southern California. The United States, don't seem to have prepared with image in mind. Chinese peaks are a totally distinct species. The U.S. hosts summits with the intention of ensuring that all participating nations recognize and uphold America's concept of democracy. This is an unattainable objective because no nation can adopt the American system of government. China, on the other hand, presents infrastructure projects at the table that Southeast Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, and Latin America needed to progress their economies. The U.S. government's lack of financial support at these meetings is another issue. The military-industrial complex's support programs are always given top priority by the U.S. government. The Biden administration's proposal to provide $40 billion to Ukraine for additional military supplies is the best illustration. Of course, America's defense contractors are the primary winners in this transaction. Biden proposed $617 million during the Summit of the Americas, or a little under $20 million per country, for the 31 Latin American nations and $150 million for the 10 nations that make up the Asian Alliance, in comparison to the $1.5 billion USD China pledged to the same region in November. The failure of this administration to entice other nations to enthusiastically unite with the U.S. through economic incentives is Biden's biggest grievance. Because Trump has been so successful in destroying global liberalism and because American voters hate it. On the other hand, China has more muscle. In the end, it comes down to how the U.S. does things differently. China also conducts politics. In the West, economics is important, but as seen in Los Angeles, is often overshadowed by other issues, including migration, women's rights, equality, and governance. In China, dissent is not part of the process. Everyone knows what is expected. This is a statement made by Jeffrey Moon, a former general at the American Council in Chengdu. Although these events have an economic component in America, the political component is far more While President Xi Jinping is rumored to rule forever, the world is aware that China has a one-party system and will keep it that way for the foreseeable future. The US is a two-party system, as is obvious. The next midterm elections are also predicted to result in a significant loss of power for the Democrats. Will Republicans win the 2024 presidential election in the United States? These are all crucial considerations for the nations of Latin America. Honest to God, South America was really optimistic when Joe Biden assumed office. Joseph Biden traveled there 16 times when he was vice president. Regrettably, there is more talking than doing. We sincerely want to work together, Joe Biden told South American leaders during the 2009 American Summit. We genuinely want to collaborate. But take note of how he talks about these issues. Everything is something we want to do, not something we are going to do. And Aaron Farnsworth, a former State Department official, recently stated that Latin America is in desperate need of economic relief as a result of the pandemic, but is only receiving limited assistance from the U.S. China is waiting in the background with a checkbook open. Farnsworth continued by saying that the United States has got to be more proactive. We have to start offering the hemisphere appealing options. The U.S. moving forward. And China will keep fighting for additional influence in different parts of the world. I wish to have the opportunity to work with both China and the United States as partners, especially for these smaller developing countries. And I strongly support the Prime Minister of Barbados' remarks. We have to start talking with. Instead of talking at everyone, we need to talk more with them. I appreciate you sticking around until the end of the video. Please keep in mind to subscribe because I will need your support to grow my channel and make a few bucks to cover living expenses. I appreciate you subscribing. I'll see you in my next video. To Cyrus Jansen's credit.